Chapter 2. Suggestion and Autosuggestion. The essential feature of hypnotherapy is not heterosuggestion, but autosuggestion. Hence, the results may be secured without a hypnotist. But before we go any further, we need to define those terms. Heterosuggestion involves an operator giving suggestions to a subject, while autosuggestion, also known as self-hypnosis, is the process of an individual giving suggestions to themselves. James Braid, 1843, demonstrated the truth of the opening statement by using a singular 9-minute process of self-hypnosis in the presence of 2 colleagues to heal his chronic rheumatism. When he came out of the trance, his rheumatism was cured and remained so for the rest of his life. Emil Kuh demonstrated that the essential feature in absent healing was autosuggestion. He would tell a patient that he would think about him every day at a certain time. He requests the patient to collect his thoughts at the specified time and to put himself in rapport with Kuh. The value of the treatment, he is told, will speedily become apparent. The patient obeys orders. Even though at the allotted hour Kuh is out gardening, after a few days a cure ensues. Contrast this with the research of Dr. Randolph Bird, a cardiologist and faculty member of the University of California Medical School at San Francisco, who demonstrated in a double-blind study that prayer had a statistically significant effect upon health. In this study, all the patients knew that someone might pray for them, but those patients who actually had someone pray for them did better than those who had no one pray for them. Yet, in another study, those who knew they were being prayed for fared worse than those who did not know they were being prayed for or were not prayed for at all. What to make of these conflicting reports? In the case of Kuh, religious belief does not seem to play a dominant part as in the others. Kuh was in the garden at the time of the experiment, though in the back of his mind, his unconscious mind, he is probably aware that a patient is expecting to receive a healing. In all cases, the patients did something inside their own mind, but we don't know what. Another factor is that Kuh practiced hypnosis in the early 20th century, while the other 2 studies were carried out around the year 2000. The difference being that the Western mind is a lot more sophisticated now than it was 100 years ago. At this point, it is worth mentioning some medical studies. In one study, patients with osteoarthritis who had a micro-incision made to the knee in place of actual surgery reported just as much pain relief as those who received the real procedure. Some people applauded the study, claiming that the result was obtained from the placebo effect, that is, self-hypnosis, while others claimed that those patients who responded positively were probably going to get better anyway, and that placebo played no part in the healing. A number of studies have attempted to compare the effectiveness of surgery to placebo on coronary heart disease. The most famous study of this type was done at 13 different Veterans Administration hospitals in the United States and reported in the prestigious New England Journal of Medicine in September 1977. 94% of a group of 596 patients had angina pains, and 2/3 had previously had heart attacks. Half received cardiac bypass surgery, while the control group received medication. I'm not sure if the patients were randomly assigned to each group or not. After 2 years, 86% of those who received surgery were still alive, while 87% of those who did not receive surgery were still alive. What to make of these reports? Those patients who had placebo knee surgery responded just as well as those who had real knee surgery, while those who had no cardiac surgery performed just as well as those who had surgery. So perhaps placebo was not the key factor in these medical studies. But either way, it looks like the medical profession may be a bit too enthusiastic about administering their procedures. Maybe they should take a back seat and let nature take its course. Searching through historical records, we find that faith healers throughout the centuries have achieved fantastic healings without any medical knowledge at all. The key elements are prestige and reputation. That is, the prestige and reputation that the subject gives to the healer. Chance. That is, an unknown force that cannot be controlled, but which plays a part in an event. Belief. What you believe and how you structure your beliefs at the level of the unconscious mind. Fantastic methods which arouse a sense of the marvelous. And meaning. What does a fantastic healing mean to you? These elements work in synergy to produce an emotional state in the subject which facilitates the working of autosuggestion. Negative self-talk is eliminated and replaced with an expectation of achieving a result. The prestige of the healer, combined with a sense of awe, produces a hyper-suggestible state in the subject who welcomes any suggestions made to him without reservation. The results being secured by engaging the help of the unconscious mind, not by conscious willpower. One just starts with an idea, the idea coming from outside yourself or from within. At some interface within the mind, the idea is either accepted or rejected. If, for example, the operator should suggest to the subject that he see a black cat, then it is the subject who creates the details of the hallucination. The operator just offers an idea which is interpreted and acted upon by the subject. Likewise, when the subject starts with his own idea, it is the unconscious mind which embellishes the idea and creates the rich internal representation in pictures, sounds, feelings, smell, and taste. This can be reduced to a three-step process. An idea, the unconscious mind acts upon the idea, the result is presented to the conscious mind. Footnote. Sometimes a suggestion may be worked upon by the unconscious mind for years before the process is completed. The author remembers having a hypnosis session in India in 1989. In this session, a particular image came to mind. Over the years, that image came back into the mind, but in a more developed form. It was not until 1999 that over a 1-week period, the image was constantly in the mind and came to a sense of completion. Footnote 2. A Malay Chinese girl was not motivated to study, so her mother went to the Taoist priest, who said a prayer and then wrote something on a piece of paper, burned it, and then mixed the ash with water. Mother took the concoction home and gave it to her daughter, who then immediately felt like she could focus and proceeded to get better marks at school. Continuing with our 3-step process, if, for example, you wanted to have more confidence, it should suffice to say to yourself, See yourself having confidence in that situation. And then the unconscious mind will process that statement based upon the files that it has on confidence. It would probably process times where you have already demonstrated confidence in other contexts, and then process memories it has of you observing the state of confidence in others. If the result is not up to standard, then you would go back to step 1 and repeat the statement, keeping in mind the law of reversed effort, that the internal representations of the desired outcome need to be stated in the positive, and that you are in a receptive state. But more about these conditions later. For now, we need to clarify our terminology. What do we mean by an idea? The following illustration should make it more clear. Waiting in line at a fruit and vegetable shop, I had time to observe a young checkout operator serving a customer in front of me. The checkout operator looked physically healthy, was in high spirits, and moved her body to the sound of music drifting down the hallway. She spoke clearly and with confidence. After I left the shop, I thought to myself, maybe I should be a checkout chick. I laughed, then analysed the process. I saw a person who had qualities that I admired. An idea arose within me that maybe the occupation was the cause of her attributes. Another way of saying that is that her behaviour suggested something to me. I spent a few minutes considering the idea, then rejected it. If I had accepted the idea, only then would it have become a suggestion. Another illustration. You see a fit and healthy young man enjoying himself. You think to yourself, maybe I should go on a diet and join a gym. This is just an idea. If you discuss it with friends and then make inquiries to a gym, you are considering it. Only once you have taken action does it become a suggestion. If, after a couple of months, you find the diet and exercise program too arduous, you might give up and say, it was a good idea, but it did not work. In common usage, the word suggestion is used to denote the first step, that is an idea. Sometimes it is used to represent all 3 steps, the idea, the unconscious processing, and the realization of the idea. The term suggestion really only represents the last stage, yet more often in common usage it means an idea. In reality, we need to determine the meaning by the context. In heterosuggestion, we start with an idea made by the operator. The subject's unconscious mind either accepts or rejects the idea. If it accepts the idea, then it undergoes transformation within the unconscious mind and finally is observed as part of the subject's reality. The acceptation of the idea is not a passive process, but presupposes that the ideas, the objects of our suggestions have been deliberately, intelligently chosen. Its primary function is to strive against harmful, spontaneous suggestions and to repair the damage these have caused. One naturally wants to be healthier, to succeed at a higher level, to be happier, to come closer to God. To these ends, the unconscious mind is untiring in its efforts. To summarize, spontaneous suggestion is driven by an emotional state and is largely unconscious. Spontaneous suggestions arise out of a feeling. Autosuggestion is an attempt made by the conscious mind to influence the subject's own unconscious mind. Heterosuggestion is an attempt by an operator to influence the unconscious mind of a subject. Autosuggestion and heterosuggestion are used to replace negative spontaneous suggestions. The term suggestibility is generally used as a negative term to refer to those people who passively accept ideas given to them. When used in reference to hypnosis, suggestibility should mean the acceptation of an idea that is based upon intelligent reflection. Binet, in Bowden, page 244, explains that children are suggestible in the sense that they will passively accept an idea. However, once shown how to critically evaluate an idea, they become less suggestible and are able to accept or reject it. Bowden makes the point that the child should be taught to accept the idea that no idea is to be accepted without reflection and without control. Contrast this with the belief that obedience to parents and authority figures is a virtue. Suggestion, therefore, is nothing more than auto-suggestion. It is an active process which goes on in the interior of the individual and whose starting point is an idea. Bowden, page 273. And further, the will is the normal mode of acting on matter on the external world, whereas suggestion is the normal mode of acting on ourselves. Bowden, page 277. Bowden states that to act upon the physical world requires us to understand the laws which regulate matter, but on the other hand, to act upon ourselves only requires us to suggest the result that we want and then allow the unconscious mechanisms to mysteriously do the work for us. Since we are both matter and spirit, then we need to learn to work with both the physical and metaphysical aspects of life. The doctor is needed as much as the faith healer. They are like two wings, balancing the organism so that it may be propelled forwards. If one wing should be cut, then the bird cannot fly. Footnote: the reason why heterosuggestion may not be so effective with some types of people is that all hypnosis is self-hypnosis. The operator may make suggestions to the subject, but it is the subject who has to interpret those suggestions and either accept or reject them. In addition, for some people, a condition for hypnosis to have occurred is that they have amnesia for the experience. Hence, if they make a suggestion to themselves after the session that the hypnosis did not work because they remembered everything that the hypnotist said, then the hypnotist's work may be undermined, not because the hypnotist was not competent, but on the contrary, because the subject themselves undid the change work with their own negative suggestions. This is why it is important that the subject have a sufficient understanding of the process of hypnosis before they experience it. Suggestion is a psychological process in which an idea is presented either from within or without, and is either accepted or rejected by the unconscious mind. Suggestion is the planting of ideas in the unconscious mind. The idea requires attention, concentration, and sufficient emotional intensity for it to have an appreciable effect. A suggestion is not a demand made upon us, which would probably meet resistance, but an idea that is presented for consideration. For example, we might say, it is just a suggestion. Whether you act upon it is up to you. I don't mind either way. One does not force oneself to stop smoking. Otherwise, Emil Kuhn's law of reverse effect will come into play. That is, the harder you try to not do something, the more you will find yourself doing it. As long as the imagination is counter to the effort of the conscious mind, then the imagination will secure the result. Both conscious and unconscious minds must be in rapport, for the unconscious mind will always win in a competition with the conscious mind. For example, the alcoholic who fights with his addiction will lose. It is only through harnessing one's internal and external resources does one achieve a favourable outcome. In considering an idea, one enters an emotional state and plays with the idea. For example, one might enter a state of relaxation and toy with the idea of stopping smoking. One explores the change from different angles, wonders about the ramifications of stopping the habit, and then comes to a decision. Then it is almost as if the idea had arisen from inside of ourselves, rather than being given to us by someone else or as a conscious act of volition. This is exemplified in the statement by the ex-smoker who says, "The hypnotherapist did not do anything. I stopped smoking by myself, and this is how it should be." If one has an idea, for example, to stop smoking, and then builds an internal representation positive to the desired outcome, then the process of thinking will in itself act as a suggestion. An internal representation is a thinking process incorporating some or all of the following: pictures, sounds, feelings, smells, and tastes. In building an internal representation, the conscious mind may start the process, yet it is the unconscious mind which embellishes and completes it. So the act of setting a goal is a suggestion to the unconscious mind. We need to add here that every thought is a suggestion in some way or another, and that a suggestion does not have to be in the form of an auditory statement, but can also be an image, feeling, smell, or taste, from within or without. For example, the feeling of cold air on the skin might suggest a need to rug up. The smell of a rose might suggest romance, while the taste of beer might suggest drunken behavior. When a suggestion is made to us, if it stirs something within us, if it finds a spark of agreement with us, if at some level we know this to be true, then even if the conscious mind is in opposition to the suggestion will continue to work and bring about a change.